Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today it's the second video in my series exploring my top pens from 2021. In this video we're going to take a look at my top 5 pens that were between 20 and 50 Australian dollars. So join me now down on the mat, let's jump in and start to explore these pens. Welcome down to the mat. Let's jump on in and look at my top 5 pens between 20 and 50 Australian dollars. First, Kaigelu 316. Duofold style pen. Love the colouring, just look at that. This colouring is called a low. I think it looks so nice. You've got your greens, you've got whites. I just love the marbling pattern. It really fetches interest to the pen. Where we've got the green parts, you can actually see through and you can see the cartridge converter. Let me just open this up for you so you can see that. There we go. There's a cartridge converter in there. And on this pen, we've got a number 6 size nib. This is a duotone nib. I do like those because I think it just fetches that extra little bit of interest, just seeing multiple colours on there. Really nice pen. So this is a Kaigelu just let me move this down a little bit. It's unusual to have to move down. A Kaigelu 316 and it's a medium nib. It cost me a whopping 24 Australian dollars. Now you can see a couple of places there I've had issues with it starting to write. And that's one of my problems I've got with this pen. The ink, it's Robert Oster. Tranquility. See, when it writes, it's writing lovely. It just gets us occasional little problems. Going to do a sentence. I'll move the mic so you can hear the pen write. Nice smooth writing pen. Again, we've seen on here, especially on that day, issues with it starting to write. We just pop the pen under there so we can actually see the pen and the writing at the same time. I love this pen. Up till now, I've only ever used Diamine Soft Mint in here, and I thought, let's try a different ink for a change. So I put in this Robert Oster Tranquility. I love the shading that I get. It looks so nice. To me, when you've got that shading in your writing, it adds character, and this is just full of character. Really is nice. As you heard when I was writing, it's very smooth. There's very little in the way of feedback. I'm not going to say it glides over the paper, but there's very little in the way of drag. I've tried this pen on multiple papers, as I've also tried it with Diamine Soft Mint. It's generally fairly consistent in the way it writes. I see this hard start, this skipping on every type of paper, whether that's this Oxford optic paper that I'm using today, or Gale and Leather Tomoe River 52 GSM, Endless Recorder 68 GSM, 100 GSM printer paper, 80 GSM printer paper, and the cheap notepad that I get from the supermarket. It all looks nice. Obviously, depending on the paper, that's where we see differences in the shading. It's a nice, comfortable pen to use. If I take the cap off and show you, there we go. Fits nicely in my hand. It's not overly big, not overly small. I don't need to post it. If I wanted to post it, it only goes onto this black end cap. And yes, it's fitting on there, but I don't know, to me, it just doesn't look right. And it feels really back heavy then. So I only ever use this unposted. So this is the Kaigelu 316 with Robert Oster Tranquility. The second pen today, this one is by Wingsung, and it's the Wingsung 698 with a steel nib. Now, it's another pen, I love the look of it. This one It's a piston filler. That does make a difference sometimes. I do enjoy a pen with a cartridge converter because it means that I can change the ink quite frequently. Generally, a cartridge converter will last me maybe 2 writing sessions, but these piston fillers, when I want to be doing a full day's worth of work and not have to worry about the ink running out, that's where I really do always reach for a piston filler or maybe a vacuum filler because they hold so much more ink, so you get more writing sessions from it. I love the transparent black colour. Now there's 3 or 4 different colours that are available in this pen, but I love the transparent one. Yes, I can see my mechanism. And in a way, this is one of the downsides of a piston filling mechanism. Nearly 2/3 of that barrel is taken up by the mechanism, which doesn't leave much for ink, does it? Let's take the cap off. The pen, there we go, there's a nib. I'm not sure if this is a number 6 size nib. I think it is. I haven't tried putting a different nib on it. Maybe that's something I may try in the future, but the nib works. It works quite well for what I want, so I don't really see the need to change it. Let's write. So here we've got a Wing Sun 698. It's got a fine nib. This to me is one of my issues, not just with this pen, but with a lot of Chinese pens. Generally, you can only get extra fine or fine nibs, and my preference, to be honest, is for broad nibs. So it doesn't put me off, but yeah, it's not perfect. Again, this one was 24 Australian dollars, so the same price as that Kaigelu. The ink in here is by Diamine, and it's Sherwood green. Let's move the mic and do some writing. So definitely we've got more feedback in there. Let me pop the pen down next to the writing. You can feel the pen dragging. There we go, let's straighten that paper up. I very easily knock my paper off because of the way I'm sat when I'm writing, when I'm doing these videos. I'm not actually straight up against the desk, so I'm a bit awkward with how I'm having to hold my hands, and I do end up twisting the paper a little bit. Anyway, as I was saying, the writing definitely, I'm not going to say it's rougher, but it feels like it's dragging and scratching on the paper. It's a fine nib as opposed to a medium nib, so I'm not going to be overly concerned about that, but it's something to be aware of. It's the difference between nibs. It's a very stiff nib. You cannot feel much in the way of line variation. You know, looking at the writing that we've got here, it's a nice line. It's a consistent line. I do see some shading, not a massive amount, but again, the line's so thin, you're not expecting too much. The ink is a lovely green ink. I've had no issues with any hard starts or with any skipping. It writes straight away. I've left it a number of weeks between use. Again, writes straight away. It's a nice pen. It's a consistent pen. It's a really good workhorse. In terms of how it fits in the hand, again, there you are. It's a nice fit. Got to be honest, I think it's about the same size as that previous one. If I pop the cap on, yes, it fits on there, but it doesn't stay. Let me try putting it on and pressing harder. So pressing harder, it will stay, but then, so it's not really a pen you can post. Let me just pop the cap back on. All in all, again, this is worthy of being in that top 5. It's a really nice pen. It's a pen I enjoy writing with. So this is the Wing Sun 698 with Diamine Sherwood green. So I'll just quickly reposition the paper. There we go. Pen number 3. This goes to the Fountain Pen Revolution Darjeeling. I think the company itself is based in America, but the actual pens, they're made in India. This is the Darjeeling. I've got this in the red colour. I don't have that many pens which are red, so I thought, yeah, this is nice. It's very light. One thing to be aware with this pen, it's got a very distinctive smell. And I've had this over a year and it still smells. It doesn't transfer that smell onto my hands, it just smells when I'm using the actual pen. You may not be bothered by that, but it's nice to be aware of it. If we take this off, we can see This is currently a cartridge converter, but with all these threads, and I would add an O-ring, it could easily be eyedroppered. Now, one of the things that puts me off this converter, it's one of those ones, here we go, where you have to slide that down and then slide it back up. So it's not a screw type converter. Let me pop the pen back together. Loads of threads on this. Here's the nib. It's a really plain nib. Again, I believe it's number 6 size. It's a medium nib, but my personal view is it's tending more towards fine. But that's something to gain. If you like them finer nibs, you'd be alright with this. For me, I prefer a nib that's a little bit wider. Let's do our writing. I'm going to abbreviate the name, so I'm going to just put FPR for Fountain Pen Revolution, and it's Darjeeling. As I say, the nib, it's branded as being an M, but I don't know, especially when I'm looking at it against that 698, it does look fairly fine to me. The pen was $30 Australian. The ink in here is by Pelikan or Pelikan, and it's Edelstein, Garnet, and I think I spelled Edelstein wrong there. This is a nice, I'm actually going to say it's a ruby red type of colour to me. I enjoy it though, and I think when I put it next to the pen, I think it's a really good colour match. Let's move the mic so we can do a writing sample. Again, I will apologise for my hand catching on the paper and pulling it off. I'm recording just outside of Perth in Western Australia, and we're currently going through a heat wave at time of recording. So I'm sweating that much that my hand's actually sticking to the paper when I'm trying to write. So please accept my apologies for that. Again, this is a really nice ink to look at. Let's go and switch into our other paper. I don't know if I've mentioned this earlier. These photos, they're of a Galen leather notebook with 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. This pen is actually surprisingly nice. It really is. Now, I have to keep an eye on this. As I said, we're going through a heat wave. I mean, it's 8:30 in the morning and it's already up to 32 centigrade. That's 90 Fahrenheit. So, you know, quite warm already. Last year about this time, I was using this pen as well, and I was having awful problems with ink flow, and I was putting it down to the heat. Now, since then, I've had a number of inks through there. I've never had a problem with any ink in there since last year. So I'm going to be watching this just in case the heat is causing it. So far in my test writing, we haven't had an issue, but again, it's something to be aware of. I love the fit of the pen. It's a little bit on the light side for me, but that's fine. You get used to it after you've been writing for a few sentences. You know, the weight then seems to just disappear. The ink is lovely, really nice. I see some real nice shading coming through with this. As a combo, I can't beat this. I think this Edelstein Garnet and this Fountain Pen Revolution Darjeeling, together they look so nice. I've tried other red inks in this pen, but none of them which have this sort of look. And as I say, so far the heat hasn't affected it. So I think maybe this is the ink for this pen. The converter, I showed you that. That's the only thing which really lets it down, but that's an easy fix. I just put a different converter in, or I eyedropper it. The nib's stiff, it's smooth, tiniest bit of feedback, so I would say it's not as sharp as the Wingsung, but it's not as smooth as the Kaigelu 316. It's nice. I actually quite enjoy writing with this. To me, it's just perfect. So look at the pen in my hand. Again, it's a very similar size to the other two, so it fits nicely unposted. This one, it does post. Because the pen is so light and the cap is so light, it doesn't really feel back heavy. So overall, again, it's another nice combination. So this is the Fountain Pen Revolution Darjeeling with Pelikan Edelstein Garnet. I'll just reposition the paper again. Should be able to then get the last two pens onto here. So my next pen. This is by Dian, and it's the Dian 960 in this really gorgeous black and gold combination. Let's fetch that over. You know, so the body and the cap, It's just black. One of the things I like about black pens, you can put any ink at all into it. Body-wise, it's actually very similar to the Kaigelu 316. So it does remind me of those duofold style pens, but obviously there's some little tiny differences in the way that the body looks. It's another pen. Unscrew the body, where we've got a cartridge converter, a twist type 1 this time. Let's pop that back together. And it's another number 6 style nib, and there we are again, we've got that 2-tone nib. It's nice, it's classic, it's a pen you can take anywhere. Let's write. So we've got Dian 960. This is a fine, but to me it's tending more towards the medium side of fine. In terms of price, this was 35 Australian dollars. The ink, it's by Pure Pens. This is a Welsh ink company and it's called Celtic Sea. I have to make sure I think about the pronunciation of that. Celtic Sea. Gorgeous blue ink. I'll move the mic and we'll do some writing. There we go. Nice blue ink, lot of shading coming through. I've had this ink in a Leonardo Momento Zero Grande with a steel nib, and I've got to be honest, coming from this Dian 960, the ink looks so much different. The Leonardo, it looks quite flat, it's all one tone, whereas here, I'm seeing loads of shading coming through. Looks really nice. You know, this is what I expected from this ink. So I think the Leonardo, I might even clean it out today because I'm just not seeing what I want. Let's take a look at the Tomoe River paper. Similar to all the other pens, to be honest. I've said, you know, it does feel slightly short. It's not short enough that I would need to use it posted, but it does feel slightly short in my hand. Again, it's a nice writing nib. There's a hint of feedback there. I like pens with that little bit of feedback, so this really does feel nice. I've had a number of inks in this pen and again not had any issues. All the inks, they've been perfect, they've flowed really nice, no skipping, no hard starts, no flow issues. As I've already said with this one, I love the shading that I'm seeing. This is what this ink is to me. It should be a nice shading ink and I'm certainly seeing that coming from this nib. I'm going to be really picky here, and again, as I've said with the Winston 698 and the Kaigelu, to be honest, you're limited by the choice of nibs that you can buy the pen in. Now I know it's a number 6 nib, means I can change it fairly easy, but given the way this nib's writing, I don't really want to do that anyway. This is the one pen where I'm seeing a little bit of line variation. So you can see at the bottom here, I've got 3 lines which are done with no pressure. Then I've got 3 lines which are done with pressure on the nib. Then I've got those little figure of 8s and you can see the line variation coming from that. I haven't really seen that on any of the other pens in today's selection. So that does make it stand out a bit from the crowd. Let's look at it back in the hand. There we go. And this is where I'm hoping you can now see what I'm saying by it's a little bit on the short side. I reckon another 0.5 centimetre and that would be perfect. So this is the Dian 960 with Pure Pens Celtic Sea. Just straighten that paper up one more time. Well, this all means that we're now down to 1 pen left for the top 5. And that pen is the TWSBI Eco. This particular one has got a 1.1 stub. I've got a number of other Ecos with different nibs in it. It's just such a versatile pen. You know, you've got quite a wide range of colours, you've got a wide range of nibs, but you've also got this gorgeous, transparent demonstrator look. So again, this is a piston filler. As you can see with this one, half the body is taken up by the mechanism. I've got a nice orange colour on this one. The other ones I've got black, I've got green, I've got red, got lots of different colours. I'm going to take off the cap. So of all today's pens, this is the one with the smallest nib. I'm thinking this might be a number 5 size nib. There we are, that's marked up for TWSBI. But saying all of this, the size of the nib doesn't matter, it's how it writes. Let's write with this one. So we've got a TWSBI Eco with that 1.1 stub nib. This costs 44 Australian dollars. The ink by Diamine. It's part of the 2021 ink event calendar, and this is Candlelight. It's a yellowy orange colour. I'm going to do my sentence. Let me just move this up slightly. Let's move the mic. So I will apologise during that writing sample. It seemed to go a little bit, I'm going to say wonky is the best way to describe it. What I was finding, because I was down near the bottom of the page, my hand was making the page move all over. So I tried to take my other hand off my microphone. So I had my chin on top of the microphone to try and hold it in place. And then, because I was doing that, I managed to hit the camera with my head, which then sent everything all over. But hopefully it'll give you a little bit of humour. And if you could have seen the way I was just sat, well, it's one of those things that a picture would have been awesome because it would have made everybody smile. Let me pop the pen down. One of the things I'm finding is I'm quite enjoying using stub nibs. You can see the line variation. So where I'm going down, we've got a wider line. But then where I'm going across, so here, like on that upward arrow, it's a lot thinner. I think this really adds to the way that the ink looks, to the character that you get when you're writing. Let's go to the Tomoe River paper. Bit disappointed on here because you can really see through to the previous page, but I think that's because this ink, it's so pale. It's not an ink I would use for everyday writing. It's certainly not an ink I'd use for letter writing. What I do use this for, and it's mainly for my pens and use videos, I use it for titles because it's nice. It means I can get some nice, not overly big titles in there, and I can use a different colour. Now, last year I was using Robert Oster Grungilt. I was having major issues with that because it was only really used a couple of times a month, and as such the nib was getting all gunked up from the shimmer that was in that ink. I gave the pen a good clean out, so I'm now using Diamine Candlelight. I'm still getting issues with flow, so I think maybe the nib may be still that little bit gunked up. So on this sample here on the Tomoe River, I had to stop and go and try and restart the pen about 3 times. You know, I'd get maybe 2 or 3 sentences, then it would start running out. That's a problem though that I can soon fix. Again, it's just a case of cleaning out the pen, taking it apart this time and giving it a really good deep clean. Whereas before, I just kept on putting water through it until it looked like it ran clean, but I think I still left some of that gunk behind. It's an enjoyable pen. As I say, I've got a number of ecos. I've always got a couple filled up. The one we've done the writing with today, as I said, that's a 1.1 stub. You know, here's another one. This is black. I always have a black ink in here, and at the moment it's Van Diemen's Devil's Black. This one's an extra fine nib. That's why I thought I would use the 1.1. But all in all, it's another enjoyable pen. In my hand, there we go. Slightly longer than all the other pens. This one, so comfortable to use. If I had to whinge about anything, I would say I would like to see the bottom of the section ever so slightly wider. And there seems to be a lip here, and that always digs into my finger. So if I'm using one of the other ecos and I'm writing more than a page, I can usually start to feel this digging into my finger as I'm going. It will post if you want it to, but to me, I always worry that when I take it off, that I'm going to end up twisting the filler cap and throwing ink out everywhere. So there, it's really tough to get off. It does come off eventually though. So this is the TWSBI Eco with Diamine Candlelight. I'll just slightly reposition the paper and fetch all the pens back. See if we can get this so we've got a little bit of each pen. There we go. So pen number 1 is the Kaigelu 316 with Robert Oster Tranquility. We've got a Winsung 698 with Diamine Sherwood Green. A fountain pen Revolution Darjeeling with Pelikan Edelstein Garnet. The Dian 960 with Pure Pens Celtic Sea. And the TWSBI Eco with Diamine Candlelight. So out of these 5 pens, which is the one I'm going to pick as today's winner? Which of these pens will go forward to the grand final to represent this price range? When I started planning this video, I thought it would be the Kaigelu 316. When I started writing the script for this video, I thought it would be the Kaigelu 316. As I've gone through the process of making the video, I've got to be honest, it could have been any of the 5 of them. But when I look at the pens, when I look at the way they write, when I look at the character of the writing that's coming out of them, how it feels in the hand, the weight, one pen does jump out, and that pen is the Dian 960. So the winner of the $20 to $50 price range is the Dian 960, and that will go forward into the grand final in a few weeks' time. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on these pens? What pens do you have in this price range that you would say are your favourites? Please drop a comment down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.